one.
Hey guys, on today's episode, we're joined by Tayler Francisco, a social media manager who helps transform businesses and brands' social media platforms from everyday landing pages to tools to drive growth and success. She's also the host of the Tiny Moments podcast, where she and her guests share insights about life, self-love, and personal development. With that being said, Tayler, welcome to the No Recipe podcast.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for coming on today. This is great.
So
go ahead.
You know what, Tayler? Just to start, let us know, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so I'm Tayler Francisco. I am a content creator, so I create content about self-love, mental health, lifestyle, and fashion.
Cool.
As you mentioned, I'm also a social media manager, so I help businesses and brands make social media a tool for their success. And I also have the Tiny Moments podcast where, like you said, we talk about self-love, personal development, and just life in general.
You kind of do the dream as far as social media, touching on everything.
I guess you could say that, yeah.
Well, how did you kind of get started with that?
So about 2 years ago, I started my journey actually on YouTube. And from there, I just kind of realized that there's so much opportunity with social media. So from YouTube, I also started doing content creation on Instagram and working with brands. And so I had like 2 years of experience with everything on the influencer side of things. And so I would like correspond with brand managers and, you know, just people who are helping set up these brand deals. And one day I was working at Orange Theory, which is a gym. And the owner there asked me if I wanted to take over their social media page. And that was something I actually never considered. And I think the reason she asked me was just because she knew I was doing my own personal stuff there. So when she asked me that, the light bulb kind of went off. And I was like, okay, I actually have a lot of skills that I've acquired over the past couple of years. Why don't I like make this into a business for myself? So now here I am doing social media managing for other brands as well.
Well, how did you kind of know, or for you, when did you realize like social media could really be a tool rather than, you know, just like a photo book or somewhere like a blog?
I feel like, honestly, I've always known, like going into this journey, just because I've watched YouTubers for so long, like literally since I was in middle school. And I saw how many sponsored posts they had, and I saw basically the life they created for themselves through that. So I always knew it was like something to monetize off of, but I had more of a one-track mindset when it came to my own, because I kind of thought the way that I was going to create a life of flexibility and financial freedom would be to make it like with my personal brand on YouTube and Instagram. But I hadn't really considered managing socials for other people. And so now that I do that, that's really opened my eyes to like how much you can monetize off of social media.
What got you into the managing aspect?
So like I mentioned, at Orange Theory, the owner asked me to do their socials. And so when that happened, I basically like over the weekend took like a beginning to social media managing course. And I basically like that Monday started and I kind of didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of learning as I went along. And I ended up planning like a full photo shoot for their studio, and I managed their page for about 2 weeks. And then they actually pulled the plug because, so it wasn't even because of me. It was just with COVID, like, you know, times are tough. So they didn't really have the space to add another team member in that way.
Yeah.
So I found that out on a Sunday morning. And so Sunday afternoon, I was like, screw this. I'm going to turn this into my own thing. So I created a portfolio. Sunday night, sent out emails to businesses here in Winnipeg. And then by Monday, I had my first client.
Wow.
And so that's, so when they say when one door shuts, another one opens, like for me, that's just so true. And I feel like if that hadn't happened, like if that deal would have worked out for me, I don't think I would be doing the business I have now. So I'm actually so grateful that it didn't work out. And yeah, it just opened my mind to the possibilities of what I could do on my own.
See, that's crazy because like how confident were you like at that point where you're just sending out emails? Just because sometimes a lot of people think when they want to start something like a business or whatever, they have to feel like I have to be knowledgeable. I have to be at this certain point and confident in it. But for you, it's just like, they shut the door here. I'm just going to send some emails out and see what happens. And that's exactly what happened. And an opportunity came up and you just you grabbed onto it. So I like, how confident were you at that point already?
Honestly, I wasn't. Well, okay, I knew that I had like acquired a lot of skills over the past couple of years, like I mentioned, just on the influencer side of things. And I also know myself in terms of when I want to apply myself and when I want to learn, I know that I can do it. So I was like, you know what? I just have to take the leap and figure it out as I go. And I feel like this past year, I've just kind of learned to trust myself with that and trust my gut feeling and just like know that I'm going to be able to figure it out. So to answer your question, I wasn't really confident in my skills at that moment, but I knew that I was going to grow and I was going to do well along the way.
The mindset's it's so essential for anyone trying to be an entrepreneur. Like your early journey when you mentioned, you know what, I had no idea what was expected from this role, but you took a crash course and just dove right into it. I think that for anyone, you know, trying to be an entrepreneur in their own right, regardless of, you know, the industry and everything else, just the notion of find a starting step and just diving in and kind of navigating the waters. I think that provides so much learning opportunity as opposed to, you know, doing all the research and being 100% set and, you know, going in as an expert. I think there's great value in just learning as you go.
100%. And I also feel like anyone who is looking for my services in general, like regardless, I knew more than they did already. So I wasn't saying or claiming that I was an expert. I was just trying to get them from point A where they were to point B where I was. You know, there's obviously a point C, D, E, right? But I just knew that whoever was actually like inquiring about my services knew less than I did. And I don't mean that in like a rude way, but you know, if they're seeking me out, it's for a reason. So I think that also helped a lot. And I think too, you're never going to feel 100% ready.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, as a creative, like there's never going to be a perfect time. There's always going to be something. There's always going to be something going on in your life. So my motto now is just like start before you're ready and perfect as you go.
I love it. Man, we should take that advice. Yeah, we definitely should take that advice.
Well, I don't know. Technically, with this podcast, that's what we kind of did. Like, I didn't know how to set all this stuff up.
Yeah.
I literally went on YouTube and just searched up you just Google best podcast equipment, literally, and then whatever popped up and whatever I thought was cool. So
just kind of roll with that.
And your setup is crazy. So
Thank
obviously
you.
you did something right.
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
For your like early stages, can you share like the very first success story? I know you mentioned you sent out all of these emails and, you know, like the day after you got a reply. What was that like? And how did that kind of come to be?
Yeah. So I got a reply back from a salon here in Winnipeg and I went down there and we had a meeting. I was so nervous. I brought my laptop and I was literally like reading off of it and just trying to sell myself when really I didn't know what I was doing. But the lady who owned the salon was like, okay, yeah. And she didn't even like try to negotiate with the price. So I was super excited. I actually like went out to celebrate at a restaurant with my friend. I was pumped. And then she like didn't message me back. And it kind of dragged for like 5 weeks where she's like, yeah, for sure next week. So at that moment I was kind of like, okay, can I do this? Right. But I actually reached out to a makeup artist. She had done my makeup for a shoot like a little bit before that. And she was actually the first person to take a chance on me.
Wow.
And because she's in kind of a similar niche that I am with content creation on my personal brand, I felt really comfortable and I knew her as well. So now like she's still my client to this day.
Yeah.
So that was my first success story where I was like, oh my God, someone's actually going to pay me to help them with this, you know? And now like we have such a great relationship. So yeah, that was the first time that I felt like, okay, I feel good about what I'm doing. I can see that I added value and it gave me more confidence to like move further.
And actually like the fact that you kind of had, you know, that first person slow kind of stonewalling you, did that provide insight to how to manage other clients and kind of go into deals differently?
For sure. So now like whenever I have someone that says, okay, I'm going to sign with you, but not yet. Usually I ask for like a deposit or, you know, we schedule a meeting. Cause at that time I was just like, sure, you know, let's go for it. So now I have systems in place that kind of protect me and my time. And I think also just learning to be more precise because at the time I kind of just said, okay, here's what I offer. But now I'm like, okay, I can grow your page by X percentage per month and I can gain X amount of followers per month. At the time, I didn't have any of that. So I could kind of see, where I went wrong. And yeah, I think that's just the main thing I learned with that one.
For you, like now you, among other things, you're a content creator. Would you say first?
Yeah, I would definitely say first. I think that's where I gained all of my skills and all of my knowledge and my passion for it. And so I feel like I know how to build a personal brand because of my own. So I would definitely say that's kind of my first thing.
How did that all start, being like a content creator?
Yeah, so I used to watch YouTube videos religiously.
Yep.
Like in middle school, I was kind of going through a hard time in my life. And so I would stay up like all hours of the night and I would watch these YouTubers. And I felt like I just had a friend in my room that I was hanging out with. And I think that's what made me want to start YouTube because, okay, I'm going to backtrack for a moment. So I was a teacher before for like 5 years. And I've also been a server. I've worked like a million customer service jobs. And my favorite thing about those jobs was being able to connect with other people and being able to inspire other people and learn from them. They learn from me. So I kind of took all of that and I realized that I could do that with YouTube. And like think of the amount of educational YouTube videos there are out there, right? So many how-tos, so many people that teach you things for free. And I was like, I would love to connect with people and use my skills in a different way. So I started doing YouTube. But with that, I realized that I also like had to do Instagram and well, I didn't have to, but it would really help with the growth. And I hated taking pictures at first. Like I hated it. I felt so awkward and I'm like, I don't know how to pose. Like Glenn is taking my photos. This is so awkward. And eventually I got the hang of it and now it takes us like 2 seconds, which is great. But I knew there was more opportunity on Instagram and it was easier to like land those brand deals. So that's kind of how I got into it. But now I'm super passionate about it. And I would say Instagram, I connect with people way more because I haven't really been uploading on YouTube lately, but I've created like a whole community there. And for me, the number of followers doesn't represent like people following me. It represents people in my community and people who care about what I care about. So I would definitely say now I'm passionate about content creation. That's how I got into it.
See, that's crazy. Cause like, you mentioned that you left like a secure kind of teaching position to pursue like what you're really passionate about, which is like content creating and helping and teaching others in this way. So essentially you went from teaching to teaching, but on like in your own different way, which is cool. Like what I want to know is like that when you were going from like transitioning from being a teacher to being a content creator, like what were the steps on taking that leap? Because that's a big decision.
Yes.
And then I feel like a lot of people would kind of judge people on that, like you're going from the secure thing to like this thing that's kind of up in the air in terms of what you want to do.
Oh, people were for sure judging me. I didn't care. And actually, I don't think that I necessarily quit my teaching job for content creation. I just knew that I was like deeply unhappy in what I was doing. So I was like, you know what? Life is just too short. Like, I just need to do something I'm happy doing. I don't know what that is yet. I mean, obviously, I knew content creation and YouTube was the end goal. But I don't think that I necessarily quit to pursue that in that moment. So when I quit, Glenn, my boyfriend, and I were actually planning to move out that September. So I had the summer off. And when we moved in, I literally had no job. And this was another situation where I'm like, I'm just going to trust myself that I'm going to figure it out. I got to jump before I'm ready. This is something I want to do. And then sure enough, I got the job at Orange Theory. And that's like so key in my journey because here I was thinking like, okay, I used to be a dancer. I'm into fitness. So Orange Theory should be fun, whatever. And then it led me to, they asked me to manage their socials. And then that is how I realized I could start a business. So all of that was so meant to be.
Yes.
So when quitting my teaching job, I absolutely did not know. Like this managing business only started for me in September 2020. So it hasn't even been a year. But I just know those were all like just so meant to be.
I guess like when someone's really devoted and have invested in anything, like in your case, you didn't have anything lined up. Had you and Glenn already have moved out?
Yeah.
And so what other motivator is there than to survive?
Totally.
And to just figure everything out as you're going. But when you tell people like, hey, I'm a social media manager, what are like people's reactions to that?
I think it was different when I was a content creator. So if I ever said I was a YouTuber or just an Instagram content creator, people were kind of like, okay, like, what is that really? But when I say that I have my own social media managing business, I feel like people kind of get it. So that's pretty cool. I still think it's a world where people don't fully understand. I think like you guys will get that, and any content creator, entrepreneur will probably get people being like, I don't know what that is because it's not a typical job. But to be honest, I don't really care what the reaction is because I love what I do. And, we know what's up as content creators, and not everyone's going to understand that.
Yeah. And really, I think you just had a post, I don't know if it was today, the other day, where you said, why listen to criticism from someone you won't take advice from? Or something along those lines. And it's so true that the outside noise that gets put in really doesn't matter if it's not coming from you. So, yeah.
Totally.
Forget the naysayers, right?
I had so many people, like, when I first talked about wanting to do YouTube, they're like, is that sustainable? Is YouTube going to be around forever? Like, how are you going to be able to work something that you can't guarantee X amount of income every 2 weeks? And I had so much pushback. But at the end of the day, I was like, I don't care. I'm going to figure it out. And I wouldn't take advice from you because you're like working a job that I wouldn't want to be in, and vice versa. Like I wouldn't offer advice to someone where I have no idea what's going on. So, and I actually did the post that today.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah. What a lot of people don't realize about content creators, like whether it be YouTube, podcasts, or whatever, in terms of like the platform, there's so much stuff like you can explore and kind of figure out, just because everyone that hopped on YouTube for the first time knew that was a big thing.
Yeah.
So like people that jump on that first thing, they're usually going to be the first people that are really successful. So people can say YouTube's going to fall off, all this AdSense, no one's making money anymore. But like, look at this podcast. Yeah. There's Patreon. Yeah. There's all these things that people can make money on. You know what I mean? So it's all about adapting and like thinking ahead. Yeah. So yeah.
What would you say today? What are the most important platforms to be on, in your opinion?
Ooh, okay. Well, I know there's so many new ones. Yeah. And I'm not even personally really using it, but TikTok is really big right now. Obviously, Instagram as always, and YouTube, I guess. But there's so many other ones. Like, I'm not even up to date on that. I feel a little bit overwhelmed thinking of all those things. I've heard lately for like bloggers and stuff that Pinterest is really important. Yep. So I guess those would kind of be the top.
Would you say like staying in your own niche would be the best way to approach it? Or do you recommend to, clients and other people be on everything, produce for everything?
I do think that the more platforms you're on, the better, because you have more of an opportunity to reach different people. But with that being said, like, you would definitely have to be careful that you're not spreading yourself thin. Yeah. Because you want to put out quality content. You don't want to put it out just to put it out. So if you can be on all the platforms and the content is great, absolutely do it. But if you feel like you're sacrificing some quality when you're trying to be on all these different platforms, I would say choose like 2 or 3 max. If, it's different if you have a team of people and they can handle those types of things, then for sure be on everything. But if not, like I said, you want to make sure you have the quality content because that's what's the most important.
For social media today, is it quality over quantity?
I would still say so. Some people would disagree. Yeah. I mean, everybody has a different take on it. But for me, like, I'm a perfectionist. So I would like to put out quality content. There's been a lot of times where I record a video or take like an outfit photo and it just is not kind of where I want it to be. And so I don't post it. That's just me. But other people have a different opinion on that for sure.
I know you mentioned that you weren't too comfortable taking photos at one time. But today, do you think photos versus video is one medium better than the other?
I think right now, if we're talking just Instagram, Reels and IGTV is very important. And I think that videos are much more personal because you can see someone's mannerisms, their personality come through, you can hear their voice. And I think like with COVID, we're all so disconnected. So just subconsciously, we're looking for that connection. So I think right now, video content is more personal. You have more of a chance to grow that way. But I still think there's those people who prefer the visual, right? And so it's good to have both. So like for my clients who are growing a personal brand, I always say like try and post like 2 reels per week. You know, like have 2 out of 5 of your posts be a video, show up on stories. But if you can't, again, right, you don't want to sacrifice that quality. So wherever you can put the quality, but yeah, video is definitely pretty important nowadays.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah. Also, I think knowing what content to post on what social media platform is important too. So like you can't post like a 10-minute video on TikTok just because you can't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I feel like TikTok is just because the algorithm is so crazy on TikTok. It's mainly to like get people to go, like you convert them from TikTok to your main platform, whatever it is. So like, for example, like podcasts, like you want to get someone to watch your YouTube video, you post a snippet on TikTok, like the most interesting part, and that gets them like tuned into your other stuff. So I think each platform has its own thing to attract people to whatever your main social media thing is. And that's how you have to adapt, I feel,
For sure.
nowadays. Yeah.
Why aren't you too active on TikTok? Or do you have a TikTok?
I have a TikTok. I was a little bit active during like the first lockdown, mainly just because I was bored.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like I'm spreading myself thin a little bit in terms of like trying to be on YouTube, podcast, Instagram, and then also trying to run my business. So I am actually really trying to stack up some content to put on TikTok. And I'm also like, anytime I post a reel on Instagram or a story, I think of how I can just post it on TikTok.
They kind of go hand in hand.
For sure. And I definitely think there's like a really good opportunity to grow there. So that's definitely like on my to-do list for this coming month is to be a little bit more active there.
You know, without giving too much away, do you think there's a correct structure to like a post? Or what are the main things that you try to hit in every single post that you yourself put out or your clients put out?
I think it depends on what the brand is. So obviously having a really good image and I think my main thing is that when you visit someone's Instagram page, you should know right away what they do. If they're selling something, you should know what they're selling or what the product is. And you shouldn't have to guess. Like you shouldn't scroll through and be like, okay, wait, what does this person do? So having like a really clear and concise bio, having clear and concise highlights, and then just having a theme to your Instagram page too. I don't know if there's necessarily like a perfect way to post per post, but definitely you want to stick within your niche and you want to make sure that when someone visits your post, they know exactly what it is that you do.
Did you, like knowing this now, is this from you trying to figure it out over time?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because at first I was just posting about anything and everything. And so when you're trying to speak to everybody, you're speaking to no one, really.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I figured it out with my own personal. And then now, obviously that I run pages for businesses, it's so important because, again, your customer needs to know exactly what problem you're solving, like what you're selling, you know? So I think it's even more important for like a service or product-based account.
For like now for the clients that come to you, they're looking for you to help grow their brand, grow their, footprint. What are some of the first things you kind of look at a brand when you initially start to help them out?
Yeah. So one of the main things I look for is like the aesthetic. Again, how clear is your bio? Do we know what your page is about? And then also just like the reach, obviously the followers. I just kind of do like a baseline report for everybody so I can see where they're at. And then I can actually assess like how much I can make you grow.
And from that, kind of the same thing, you learned that over time with other people, or was that, is that kind of established as far as like in that crash course for social media managing? Is this a lot of the information that you learned from that?
Actually, that one, no. And I only started doing baseline reports like a couple months ago.
Okay.
I should have been doing them straight from the beginning, but like I said, I've been learning as I go. Yeah. And those are just so crucial so that I can actually show my client, this is how much you grew each month. I didn't learn that in those social media courses, but I learned so much. So I would definitely say like if you're trying to start something, kind of like that, at least try and take some mini courses, get some base knowledge, and then just kind of learn as you go, because that's what I did.
What do you think are the early struggles for like anyone trying to be a content creator?
I think imposter syndrome is probably the number one thing. Just thinking, like, if you go into it thinking, are people going to like me? Or is my outfit good enough to post this, you know? Or like, why are people going to care about me? What you have to understand going into it is that people probably don't care. And I say this with love because your job as a content creator is to make people care, right? And everybody brings something unique and amazing to the table. So I'm not saying that people don't care because you suck. I'm just saying that people don't know you. They don't know your character. They don't know your heart. They don't know what you're about. So you have to make that very clear and just like go in with the mindset that there's going to be a group of people who love you. There's going to be a group of people who don't like you, and therefore they probably won't follow you, and that's fine. But I would say that's probably like the biggest struggle is that imposter syndrome where you're doubting yourself. So, I mean, it's not like I never go through that. I definitely still have those moments all the time, but I'm like able to talk myself out of it pretty quick. So yeah, as a content creator, just go in realizing that you have to make people care, and they will, you know,
over time.
Yeah.
And as like the content speaks to them,
for sure.
It kind of works. What were like for you early on, when someone's coming in and they're saying, hey, we want to do this, and you know, over time there's not a lot of traction going on. How do you kind of relay back to your clients saying, hey, it's a process that we need to go through and something that we need to like build? Is that something that clients already know, or right off the bat, if they're like, you know what, Tayler, we've been working together for 2 days. Why am I not blown up yet?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you want growth in 2 days and you're going to have to buy your followers, which is like not my jam. So before I even ever onboard a client, I always make it very clear, like, because I do my contracts 3 months at a time.
Okay.
And so I always tell them, like, the first month is going to be trial and error, no matter what. Like, we could hit it off right away and we could see growth right away. But if we don't, it's because I don't know your audience yet. I don't know which hashtags to use yet. You know, everything is trial and error. And eventually you hit that sweet spot. And that's why, like, the baseline report is so important, because then I can actually go in and see where they're at and make, like, a correct estimate on how much I can guarantee the growth. So yeah, I think they know that because I make it pretty clear. I had a client actually, she was my first American client, and
Oh, crazy.
yeah, it was so wild. But literally 2 days into me managing her account, we got shadow banned. I don't know if you guys know what that is.
No, but explain.
Yeah.
Okay, so Instagram has this really annoying thing that if you don't normally post a lot and then there's a sudden surge in activity, or maybe you're using flagged hashtags, or if you're sending the same message to someone, they'll like flag you as spam. And so basically,
like a bot.
Yeah. And so what shadow ban does is no matter what hashtags you use or location, you will not show up to people who aren't following you. So this happened literally 2 days into me working with my new client. And so I'm kind of freaking out, like, this seems like my fault, right? But I actually realized the reason why is because this client does marketing. And so she was sending like the same message to a bunch of people, which is like, it should be fine. But Instagram is just kind of cracking down. So in that case, I set up a meeting with her and I said, okay, here's what I can do like within the shadow ban, but we're not going to see the growth that we thought we were going to see because of that. And honestly, she was so chill about it. And she knew like, this is out of my hands. So I just kind of did the best that I could like within that. And then now we're out of a shadow ban. Now we're seeing growth. So we're good. But for sure, that's a scary moment as a business owner, because I'm like, I can't blame anyone else, you know, like this is on me kind of. But as long as, you know, I was able to explain that to her and like tell her the exact reasons why, I think that like just going forward, even for other clients, I feel like there won't be as much pushback because there's like clear evidence on why that happened.
Such a great like learning opportunity for you, definitely.
Yeah, I had a heart attack for sure.
How do you get out of that? If someone's out here like shadow banned, like we might be shadow banned, how do you know? First of all, how do you even know, and how do you get out?
Okay, so this is kind of like, I'm unsure a little bit. I know a few things. So first of all, to know, if you, let's say you're using hashtags, right? Within like 2 minutes of you posting, you should click on a hashtag and just make sure that you're showing up in the recent posts. Because if you're not, likely you're shadow banned, or you use too many hashtags, which you can use up to 30 per post. So just keep that in mind. But Yeah, that's the first way. The second way would be to check your location, see if you're showing up there. If you're not, likely you're shadow banned. And then also, like, something that's really clear is to just look at your reach, because if you open your insights and you scroll all the way down, it'll actually tell you how many hits you got from hashtags. And if you're not getting any, that's a good sign. Or you're just using hashtags that are really big, and so you're getting like lost in the sauce. So let's say you do hashtag love, like you're not going to show up.
Yeah, for sure.
There's like billions of hits on that. But yeah, generally your reach will be lower, and those are just like the main ways that I can tell. In terms of getting out, I just stopped using hashtags for like a week. I also shortened the stories. So I did like a hard reset where we didn't post anything for 24 hours. And then obviously not sending the same message to a bunch of people. But to be honest with you, I don't know what it was that got us out of the shadow ban. Like, I still don't know. And I don't think anyone really knows.
Yeah. That's probably not something that they share.
No.
For when you're creating posts with a client, what are some of the common and like easy to use tools that people don't realize is available on like Instagram, for example?
Yeah. So the biggest thing that's helped me is using a content calendar. So there's so many different things. There's like Hootsuite, there's Later, there's Planoly. I use a program called Loomly. And so I pay like a monthly subscription fee. But then from there, I can actually like plan a month of content in advance. And then the post will just go up at the time I schedule it for. And so that, like, it is time consuming in the moment. But after that, like, you don't have to focus on thinking of what to post at all. And so for me, that's been super helpful, because I typically use like Monday and Tuesday to do that. And then I don't have to think about it for the rest of the week, really.
Yeah.
And I've done that with my personal account too. So that's been super helpful.
So a scheduling app to release content. When specifically on the content, are there anything that you guys do to get outreach? I guess like hashtags primarily, or are there other small things that people don't realize you can use to like show your post off more?
Yeah, so definitely like using your location. Hashtags are a really big one. Like, I've had posts that get like over 40,000 views just from hashtags.
Whoa.
Yeah, which is so wild. And that is it's rare, if I'm being honest, because you have to really have like the right combination.
Yeah.
And then with that too, Instagram actually doesn't want you to keep using the same hashtag. So let's say you have a post that goes viral with 40K. You can't use that same cluster or that same combination again for a while. Otherwise, you'll get shadow banned. So it's kind of tough. But yeah, I would say location, hashtags, and then just having like and this seems so simple, but just like an aesthetically pleasing photo or graphic to catch someone's eye. I would say those are like the most important things on the content creation side.
I actually didn't realize that location was a thing.
Yeah, me too. Like, location is key sometimes.
Yeah.
Or most of the time.
Yeah. That's actually how I find like my influencers. So when I work with like a local brand, I'll just go to the Winnipeg geotag and I'll scroll through, or I'll look through like hashtag Winnipeg blogger. And so like hashtags are so key, because even for me, I always use the hashtag social media manager. And that's how I've landed like 4 clients in the last month.
Wow.
Yeah, just from that hashtag. So it's definitely important to like do your research on what your niche is and like which hashtags to use.
How are you getting clients?
Honestly, it's so crazy, but they're reaching out to me. Yes. Like, I haven't sent a pitch email since November.
That's the dream.
It's insane. I'm like so lucky to have that happen. And that's just through hashtags, honestly. And just having like engaging posts. So for me, like, obviously I'm still a personal brand, but I try and talk about my business at least once or twice per week, like in an official post. And literally every time I post something, I get a client. And so I've been holding off a bit because I feel like I just need a moment to like stay caught up. But every time I post, so as long as you're like using the right keywords and the right hashtags, Instagram is such a tool, you know, to find content creators or people that you need.
That's incredible that you can get that many clients. And at this point now, you're not, you know, reaching out so much to businesses.
Yeah.
Early on, was it a lot of referrals or just organic growth through Instagram itself?
It was both. Well, at first I was sending a lot of pitch emails.
Yeah.
And I was basically pitching, you know, to businesses in Winnipeg. And then after that, once I had like a decent client base, it was mostly referrals.
Yeah.
And now I think I'm driving traffic like through my Instagram, and then I also have on my highlights. So my main goal is to just make it really clear as to what I do. So literally in my name, it says Tayler, social media manager. In my bio, it says I help businesses and brands make social media a tool for their success. So yeah, just having it be really clear. And yeah, it's just crazy. Like I haven't reached out to anyone.
Do you think, or in your case, are most of the people you're working with from Winnipeg?
Right now, yes. I do have 3 clients who aren't from Canada.
Wow.
Right now, which
Super
is
cool.
Yeah, it's so wild. And that's the beauty of like doing anything digital, right? You can literally work with
that's true.
whoever from wherever. The only thing I would say is that I did have someone reaching out from Asia, which is so cool, but there's a really big time difference. So I could see that being difficult. But even with that, like I could still probably make it work. So.
And for all of those clients here, or I guess all of your clients in general, how much of like after you work with someone for your initial 3-month contract, do you guys continue, or do they kind of pick up from all the information that you've shared with them and kind of go from there?
Actually, I think I've only had 2 clients who didn't continue.
Wow.
The rest of them I've had like this whole time. So that's been really cool too. Like I mentioned, the makeup artist that was like my first client ever.
Yeah.
Like her and I are still working together.
Wow.
And she's like given me amazing referrals, and we have like a great relationship. And I definitely see that being a long-term partnership. And that's the goal, obviously, with all my clients. You know, if we're vibing, if it's a good fit, like I want to be part of the team. And I think it's a level of like comfortability as well for them and their brand, because they're like, well, now, you know, I don't want to hire someone else because then I have to go and explain my brand to you. And when I take clients, I make sure that I really know the brand inside and out, because I want to make sure like everything I'm posting is something they love. So I think that's why I've been able to like have that client retention.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Thank you.
No, this is like...
Yeah, this is actually pretty crazy because like, okay, hold on. So when you work with the brand, like how far, like do you just look at the social media and that's it? Like how far do you deep dive in terms of learning their brand? Because sometimes when you suggest something to a client, it kind of feels like you're stepping on their toes. Do they ever like feel that way? Or like how far do you go in terms of that?
Yeah, so I actually send like a series of questions to all my clients. So like I have an onboarding process, and this is just a me thing, but I think because like I value connections so much, and just through the jobs that I've had, like serving and teaching, that's always such a big thing for me. And I know because I'm a personal brand, that's probably why they reached out in the first place, because they feel kind of comfortable. So I send them just like a series of long questions, and it's basically me getting to know them and their brand, like what the heart behind the brand is. I want to know like their whole story basically. And so when they send that back to me, then I can make a social media strategy that I feel like they're going to love. And 2, like if I'm ever posting anything, like when I put it into the content calendar, all of my clients have to approve the content before it goes up. So if there's like a typo, or if they're like, you know what, this graphic's not really that cute, you know, they can say so before it goes up. And yeah, I haven't had anyone be like, you know what, I don't like this strategy at all this far. I mean, I'm sure it's going to happen. I'll have to adapt, but like this far, I feel like I make an effort to really know like the ins and outs before I start posting. So
I think you're right with the line of thought that the only way really to be successful in business is develop the relationship first.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you know, you're so keen on the brand itself rather than, you know, the service that you'd be able to provide, I think that just goes to show as far as your retention with clients and the fact that you're growing. So like, to me, it's incredible. The notion that you put out a post and you get a client from that. I think like any business would want to be in that position. So everything you're doing right now, it seems like it's right on the mark. So
thank you so much.
Super cool.
Yeah, it's so crazy, because I just honestly, like when I started this, I was like, this would be a cool side gig, maybe, you know, and now like I'm literally able to not work for someone else. Like it's crazy. And I think that all the jobs I've had, I felt like for a little bit, I was kind of like, oh, I spent so much time in school to be a teacher. I have all these skills and now like I'm doing something totally different. But I really feel like it's all like everything ties in together. And I think that because personal connection is so important to me, like you said, I'm able to like retain those clients. And I just know on the personal brand side of things, like if I had someone taking over my stuff, I would want them to know me inside and out. I would want them to know my audience, my brand. Like I would want to make sure that I don't feel anxious in like, my editor's skills or whatever. So I think I also have like the benefit of knowing that side of things too. And even with my podcast, the Tiny Moments podcast, my friend edits it and he's great. And like we've known each other for a long time. We're super close. So he knows what's up and I don't have to worry about it. So I just kind of try and treat it like that. Like I want them to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna ask, like, so, because, like, I feel like when you do because you do social media management on your own, so how do you know when something's too much for you to handle and you should, like, offset it to someone else, like, just like your friend, like, for your podcast, like, I don't know the technical stuff, you can edit it for me. I'm the face and I'm the voice of this podcast, so that's me. So, like, when you decide, I don't think I can do this, like, where would you reach out to, like, or who would you reach out to first for that, actually?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was lucky enough that I know he's an editor, he's a producer. So like that for me was really easy. But I realized when I was editing, my editing sucks. Like I can edit a pretty good YouTube video. And even with that, I literally use iMovie. But like when it came to editing my podcast, my cuts sucked, my audio sucked. And I was like, okay, I'm honestly really busy. I didn't enjoy the process either. And that's another big thing for me where I want to feel passionate about what I'm doing. And I definitely feel passionate when I'm recording the episode. But editing, and I was saying this off air, it's literally squiggly lines to me. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know what this is. So that's kind of when I knew. And also, obviously, now I'm in a better position financially because 2 years ago, I would not have been able to hire anyone on my team. So that's definitely a big factor too. But yeah, I think just when I'm not feeling passionate, and then along with that too, just with my clients, so right now I'm actually in the process of taking on a couple team members.
Yeah, I was just about to ask.
Yeah, so I'm in the process of doing that. And so now I kind of know which things are really time consuming. I also know now which things I really love to do and that I want to continue to do. And obviously the connection piece is really important to me. So I'm going to continue doing all of that. But little things like hashtag research or engaging with accounts, replying to comments, stuff like that. I mean, like, I'm not going to say I'm passionate about that. I know it's necessary and it's fine. But if I can, delegate those little tedious tasks to someone else who wants to do it, then why not? So that's just kind of how I've been doing things. And honestly, that whole thing is really new to me. I've only been kind of working on that for the last 2 weeks. So this far, I've been doing everything by myself.
Wow. Awesome. For you now, like you had mentioned in middle school, like you had watched a lot of people on YouTube. That's kind of what had inspired you to be, go into content creation. Who are those people? And specifically for the content creation side, do you have any mentors that you have today?
Yeah, so on YouTube, I first started watching It's Judy Time. She's now It's Judy's Life. She's a family vlogger. And I've literally watched her kids grow up because I still watch their vlogs to this day. I always make Glenn watch them with me. And I used to watch Sophia Chang, Whaley. Who else was there? I think those are kind of the main ones. And I still literally watch them to this day. And that's just because they have that connection piece that I really love. And in terms of mentors, honestly, when I think of my upbringing, right, having my mom and my grandma as such a big support, they were always just, whatever you want to do it. You're going to be the best. And they would always hype me up. There was never a moment that I felt like I wasn't good enough with them. So I think that's what shaped me into how I am now. But in terms of an actual mentor, I honestly don't have anyone who showed me the ropes. I don't have anyone who kind of told me what to do or gave me advice. I actually have had a couple of girls tell me that I was the first Winnipeg YouTuber they watched.
Wow.
Oh, really?
Whoa.
I wasn't actually the first, but I think I was one of them for sure.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And so, yeah, I didn't really have anyone to look up to here or talk to for advice. I kind of just did everything by myself. I I definitely learned a lot from like the people I watched who are out in LA and like other places. But in terms of actually having an in-person mentor, I actually didn't have that.
Not to get too personal, but what was the reaction from your mom and your grandma when you said, hey, I'm going to do this full time?
Yeah. So my grandma had actually passed before this happened, but I know, okay, I think she would have been a bit confused because like grandma's social media, right?
Yeah.
But I think, she would have been supportive. My mom was nervous for sure. Like leaving my teaching job, she was like, oh my God, right? And I don't blame her. Like, it's not that she didn't think I'd be successful. She just didn't understand and she couldn't see the vision. And of course, as a parent, you're going to be nervous when your kid leaves this stable job, right? And that job was very hard to get to. Like, I know that teaching jobs aren't easy to come across. So yeah, she was nervous, but I think that when she started seeing like packages come in the mail all the time and the brand deals coming in, and then, she saw that I was so much happier, then she was all for it. And especially now, because now like I can write down on paper, what it is that I'm doing and how it's beneficial. So now she's like all for it.
Yeah. Now that you have the kind of the evidence to back it up.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's much more approachable to not just your mom, but probably to anyone.
Totally.
That even asks. But other than the YouTube content creators that you follow, are there any books or any podcasts that kind of have shaped your mentality in business or even in just the personal development of you?
There's so many. So I'm the biggest nerd ever. I read like every day.
Cool. Oh,
nice.
Wow. Yeah. That's incredible.
I haven't read a book in a while, to be honest with you. But I can kind of change that now because there's audiobooks. So I'm going to try to, instead of podcasts, I'll do audiobooks now just because it's a thing. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I actually haven't even dabbled into that because I'm such a nerd that I love to hold the physical book.
Okay, cool.
So, and the reason I do that every day is because I like to either start my day or end my day or both, like with a book instead of being on my screen, because I'm on my screen literally all day.
Yeah.
But I've always loved books, like since I was a kid. So yeah, the books that I've been loving this year, there's a book called Everything is Figureoutable by Marie Forleo. That was what totally made me start this, because I was like, it's figureoutable, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And that's kind of her motto, obviously, with the title.
Yeah.
I'm currently reading Jay Shetty's Think Like a Monk.
Yep.
And I love his podcast. He actually recently did an episode with Big Sean. And he's like one of my favorite artists growing up.
So it's like the perfect
blend.
And
they were just talking about manifestation, like all these things that I've like tried to apply in my own life over the past couple of years. And then my two favorite podcasts would definitely be Ed Milet. He's incredible. He's so motivational. He owns like a million different businesses. And then there's a podcast called The Skinny Confidential, the Him and Her Show. So it's Lauren and Michael, I believe, that host it. And they're just like a power couple. And that's just kind of what I strive to be in terms of content creation. So those are like my main inspirations right now.
Speaking about audiobooks, and Jay, he has the audiobook where he narrates it. He has the best voice for it.
He does, right? Yeah. And the accent.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good.
It's super cool. But that's probably one you can get into.
Yeah. Okay. I'll check that one out.
Yeah.
For sure. Actually, there's one thing I wanted to touch on. Yeah. I listened to your podcast. I like.
Thank you.
Like all the episodes I listened to. There was one where you actually lost your Instagram for a bit. Which is the craziest episode, just because this is like your bread and butter now. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And then losing your Instagram, like what do you do? So like if you guys want to listen to it, it's on our podcast, Tiny Moments podcast. You can listen to it. But what I wanted to touch on is like, what have you learned from that? Like, what's the biggest thing you learned from that experience right there?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for listening. That's so cool. Whenever someone says they listen to my podcast, I'm still not used to that. Yeah, honestly, and this sounds so first world and so dumb, but I was so stressed. Like,
who wouldn't be though?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like such a stupid thing, right? And I feel like, okay, so usually when I'm stressed, like you'll know, because I can't hide it on my face and I kind of freak out. But I was surprisingly calm because my mindset was just like, okay, this is a physical thing. None of my family or friends are hurt. I'm not sick. Like, we're living in a pandemic. Like, things could be worse, you know? But as the hours went on, I was kind of starting to get anxious because I'm like, okay, so how am I going to get clients? How are people going to see that I'm credible? Like, how do people know that I'm a real person? I'm not just going to run away with your money. Like, you know, I've had this Instagram since like I was in grade 9, which is insane. So all those thoughts are of course running through my head. And the reason my account got taken down is because I talk about a lot of things on my Instagram that are important to me.
Yep.
And of course, I never call anyone out by name. And I don't believe in cancel culture. I'm obviously never going to take part in bullying, but I will always speak about things that matter to me.
Yep.
So I always speak about Black Lives Matter. I speak about just important things that are going on. And so this video went viral of these guys. And they basically were just kind of bragging about displacing poor people in the middle of a pandemic, point blank. And
in Winnipeg?
In Winnipeg.
I think I've seen that one.
Yeah. So one of those people that they displaced was my mom.
Wow.
And the video went viral. So I helped move my mom a month before this video went viral. And so when it went viral, I had all these people tagging me. So of course I was going to speak on it. Like they exposed themselves,
Yeah.
So I spoke on it. And then, yeah, sure enough, like I had an article with the Winnipeg Free Press actually about it because my story went viral. Basically, I had 20,000 views. And shortly after that, my account got taken down. So you can put two and two together, right?
Yep.
And so, yeah, it was so scary because I'm this, like you said, is my bread and butter. How the heck am I going to function now? There's a girl named Julia. She's from Winnipeg. She was nice enough to message me on my backup account because I had made an account and I just posted saying, hey guys, it is me. This is not a spam account. Can anyone help me? And the community was so supportive and just I'm just so lucky to have people who care, And yeah, she helped me get my account back. There was just a form that I had to fill out.
Oh, okay.
It was a maze and a half to figure that out, but thankfully I had a direct form. And my takeaway from that, honestly, was just that you do not own your content on Instagram.
Yeah.
So having a website is so crucial, and just making sure you save all your photos, have a hard drive somewhere, your stories, because another thing I was thinking about was oh my God, I won't have all my memories, Yes. So that's my main takeaway. And that's actually why I'm putting so much priority in building my website, because I know that at any time my Instagram can be taken down.
Just be gone.
And also actually, so recently I just had a video that went viral again. I was just talking about my experience with racism in the city. And the day after that went viral, my account was down.
Oh.
Yeah. And so, but this time, I don't know if it was a fluke or what, but I got it back up pretty quickly. It happened twice in 24 hours. Yeah, I don't know.
Jeez.
But now it's okay. So I'm hoping that from here on out, it's going to be fine. That's something I really don't know, even as a social media manager, how that can happen. And even with Instagram, you can't actually contact anyone directly.
Yeah, you can't speak to anyone and no one will be able to give you the insight as to why.
Yeah, and that's just because Instagram's a free app, point blank, right? So yeah, just my biggest takeaway was if you're a content creator, if you're a business, a service provider, have a website and make sure that you have a blog there and that you own the right to all your content, because it can be taken away in a second. There's no way to get it back if it's permanently gone.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, what I liked when I was listening to her, that one episode,
yeah,
when that happened, she was obviously stressed. You were stressed. That's what she was saying. But the first thing that you did was kind of not think about it, put it to the side, and then you decided to just connect with people that people your friends and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just so what's cool about that is just that some people will just hunker down, be stressed, lay in bed, sleep it off, have a drink. But in terms of what you did, you kind of just reached out to and caught up with friends, which is a really cool thing. So it's it's a different perspective on how to deal with things, especially something like that. So that's a crazy takeaway that I learned from that.
Yeah, thank you. I was just kind of I want to focus on things that are real. The virtual world is there's so many things on there that aren't real. And again, I don't know, I just was I'm going to take this moment to focus on the physical, the right now, because at the end of the day, I'm well, Facebook or Instagram hasn't emailed me back. So what am I going to do? Sit here,
That's so true. What's something, if you had an opportunity to talk to a younger version of yourself, what would you tell her?
Ooh, that is so deep. Well, I would definitely say that you should work smarter and not harder, because growing up, my family didn't have a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in university, I was teaching full time because I had a paid internship at the school I ended up working at. So I would do that Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 3:30. And then I would either serve at Boston Pizza all night, or I was working at a tanning salon at the time. So I would literally work 60 hours a week. I was taking online courses. So I would never even catch the live video. I would just go in at like 1 a.m. and watch my lecture. And like, I guess I made a decent amount of money, but it wasn't sustainable. I was so exhausted. And I just had the mindset where I'm like, if you work really hard, you'll be successful. And I totally glamorized the hustle, right?
Yeah.
And like, think of the richest people on earth. Are they working 60 hours a week? I doubt it.
Not anymore.
Yeah. Like maybe some of them are. I don't really know, but I know for sure that there's a lot of them who are chilling. Yeah. So I would definitely say that to my younger self. And then I would also say actually what I posted today about not taking criticism from people you wouldn't ask for advice, because I cared so much what people thought about me. And I didn't trust myself enough. Like when I had a good idea, if someone told me otherwise, I'd be like, okay, you're right. Or like, maybe I shouldn't. And now I can literally say, I do not care what people say. If I'm asking someone for advice, then it's someone I care about and someone I value. But even then, sometimes I still like won't listen to them. Because at the end of the day, I know I'm my own boss and I know my own intuition. So I think those are like the two main things. And also like, I would just tell myself to be more gentle on myself, because I think naturally as a perfectionist, I'm just very hard on myself and I always want everything to be absolutely perfect. And yeah, that's something I learned later in life, that it's okay for things not to be perfect. So I think those are like the three main things I would say.
When you say work smarter, not harder, how does someone go about by doing that?
Yeah. So for me, and I mean, I can't speak for everybody.
Yeah.
But for me, it was just about utilizing my skills, right? And figuring out a way like to visualize the life that I wanted and then kind of do what it took, you know, at all costs to get there. And so for me, like when I think of success, I think of having, you know, flexibility to be with my loved ones whenever I want. I think of not having to wake up at 6 a.m. for work. I think of not having to listen to someone else. So being really clear on like what success actually looks like for you, because I think for a lot of us, we're so focused on like what it should look like or what people say it is, right? Whether that's your promotion at this job or getting paid X amount of dollars for your salary, but really being honest with yourself on what that looks like. And for some people, that's literally like, I just want to spend more time with my family, or I just want weekends off. It could be as simple as that. So in terms of working smarter, I would just say like be honest with yourself and what you want, and then do your research on how to get there and think outside the box, because you don't have to just go to school and graduate and get a job. I mean, that's great if that's what you want and if that's what makes you happy. I know a lot of people who like love their profession. Amazing. But if that's not for you, there's so many ways to make money now. There's so many ways to survive, you know? So just don't limit yourself.
Awesome.
I think when people say like, when people say work, I think it's different for people that are super successful, because like people that are super successful, they're technically still working, but now they have the time to work on themselves. They're always building something up, and when that thing's built up, it's good on its own, and then it's like, okay, time to work on the next thing. But you also have that time to work on yourself. So I think successful people really do work a lot, but it's more towards themselves instead of for someone. You know what I mean? Yeah, right?
And I literally said this morning, actually, because my mom was asking me, like, you know, like, how do you clock in, clock out kind of thing with your job now? And I said, honestly, sometimes I don't, but I would rather work 12-hour days for myself than 8-hour days for someone else.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's super powerful.
Yeah.
Well, with that, like, where do you see yourself and your business in a year from now, or even, 5 years from now?
Okay, well, I'm going to be really extra here because I'm trying to manifest.
Absolutely, go.
I think in a year, honestly, I see myself like being able, okay, this is dependent on COVID as well, but just being able to work from wherever. I'm hoping to be able to travel. Like, I would love to split my time between here and LA. Like, every time I've gone, I just feel so at home there, and that's just like where I want to be. So I definitely see myself being there for half of the time. I see Glenn and I in either a 2-bedroom or like a house. And I just see my business being a lot easier on me, because with the team members that I'm taking on, they're doing so well with, the things that I want to be done. And I'm getting the creative freedom and I'm able to do what I love. So I definitely see a year from now, all of that being super established. I see myself just kind of being at the top, doing what it is that I love, and then having people help me with like the little things. So yeah, that's where I see myself in a year. In 5 years, I don't know. I think, honestly, this sounds so insane, but I see myself like in a huge house. I see myself being able to vacation whenever. I see myself being able to take care of my family. You know, even in a year from now, I'm hoping that I can definitely help my family out, because that's like my biggest motivator with anything that I'm doing. Like, I would love to just be able to say to my parents, you don't ever have to worry anymore, you know? So definitely in 5 years, like that would be the goal.
I'm big on like verbalization and manifestation. So it's there.
Yeah.
Like, you're totally there.
Yeah. You just got to put it out into the universe, you know? Yeah.
And they'll come back. So Tayler, how can people connect with you?
Yeah, so you guys can find me on Instagram. So that's just at Tayler Francisco, and that's at TaylerFrancisco. I also have the podcast, which we mentioned. So that's the Tiny Moments Podcast. That's also on Instagram at Tiny Moments Podcast.
Are there any shout outs you want to give?
I guess Glenn for forming this connection for us.
Thanks, Glenn.
Yeah, shout out to Glenn.
Cool. And you know what? Honestly, that's it. Guys, that's a lot to unpack and to, you know, take in, unpack, and see where you can apply it in your own lives. And like, this was Taylor's, just the start of her journey. And how are you going to start yours? So thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. And we'll catch you next week on the No Recipe Podcast.
Peace.
Peace.